Hi guys, today I thought we would go for a little walk around the garden. Of course, nothing's growing yet, but I thought I would just show you my process and how I kind of approach things as we get into spring here. So welcome back, and if you're new here, my name is Kayla and this is 5 Canadian Acres, where we're growing up in Alberta, Canada, Zone 3, where it's a short season, cold climate. So there's a couple of things to note up here. First, yes, everything was not pulled out in the fall. I just kind of left everything, piled some pots down in the corner there. Over the many years of my gardening, I've just learned to accept that this is my process. It's kind of how my brain works. In the fall, I am so busy with pulling and harvest and preserving those harvests and everything that I don't really have time to come in here and clean this all up. But now that we're into the spring, I am so eager to get into this garden. I can't yet though, it's still too cold. So now on these nice days, I can come in here, I can clean up these garden beds. It gets me outside, it gets me in the garden, and then I get that done now in the spring. Now this process doesn't work for everybody, of course. If you were OCD, this would not work for you. You would have had this cleaned up in the fall, fresh compost put down, all ready for the spring. Also, if you do grow somewhere where there is a warmer climate, some people can grow all year long. So they're having to pull out everything and refresh and actually get planted right away. But because we have such a gap between when we are harvesting stuff to when we can plant in the spring, I don't mind just leaving it there. So as things get nicer, that's going to be my first task, is pulling up all this old plant matter in the pots back there, just getting everything cleaned up, and then we can go ahead and refresh it. The other thing I wanted to note was that you can see how much snow is still here on the ground, and everything that's in the ground there, how much snow is left. Yet these garden beds have all fully melted. So if you are growing in a short season with the cold climate, I highly recommend getting some raised beds and growing at least a little bit of stuff in there. You can get that spring garden put in very early. One thing to note with raised beds, it can be hard for some of the perennials because the sides are exposed. They can get exposed to that frost. But I do have some chives over here. This bed that's right in front of the greenhouse, I think it gets a little bit of heat protection at the back. And these chives right here, of course, nothing's really growing yet. This green is just from over the winter and such, but these chives are the ones that always start growing first every year. And same all along this bed, we're gonna get all of this stuff pulled out, except for right here. You can see I have some lettuce. So this was not harvested in the fall. It just kind of stayed there all winter. This green, of course, is gonna kind of rot and die back, but it should start to grow. So lettuce is a biennial. So that means the first year it grows all the greens and then it overwinters. The second year, it's gonna grow again and it's gonna focus on producing the seeds. It's gonna flower and go to seed. I'll leave that there. It's gonna flower, go to seed. I'll harvest those seeds and then I'll have lettuce seeds to be able to start all the lettuce I need next year. And you can see in this front bed too as well, there's some lettuce. Whoops, fell through the snow there. There's some lettuce there, which will be really nice. You know, that one even looks like it might even start to grow. It's amazing how hardy this stuff is. This is a bed where I have a lot of perennials. I have my rose bush, which will be the third year. Hopefully that'll come back. It should. Bee balm, and there's catnip that grows in here. Onions, they'll come back for sure. I do also have my lavender in here. I really hope that comes back. And then the cherry tree, and all this snow still needs to melt. Of course, we're only in the beginning of March, so the snow might melt, but we're going to be getting more snow. But the nice thing about March snow is that it melts and it kind of goes into the ground and actually gets more moisture into the ground than all of this snow that we have right now. Here's the strawberry patch and asparagus bed. All this is still covered, which is great. It's just being insulated under there. You can see where the snow melted. A lot of it is still green. But what happened last year is because I had this metal thing here, the asparagus didn't lie flat. So all under here was exposed for most of the winter. And you can see even at this point, I think I'm going to lose a lot of strawberries right here, maybe even some asparagus, because where it was covered in snow, let me get out of the light here, where it was covered in snow, you can see how much it was insulated. It's still green, but all of this stuff over here, which was exposed, is just brown and dead. Which is weird to think that snow is actually an insulator, but that is one of the great things we have up here. Some places struggle, like say even in Calgary where they get the Chinooks and throughout the winter the snow will melt and then it'll freeze again. That actually exposes a lot of your perennials to that frost. So up here where we get the snow that kind of stays all winter long, that's great. If you have this problem where the snow is melting, I've seen people go and shovel snow on top of it, or those are the places where you're going to want to use a different kind of insulation, a different kind of mulch, like some straw for over the winter. As you can see, I've got a lot of stuff to clean up over there, a little bit of garden storage, and we'll just be letting all of this stuff melt. A lot of this stuff was perennials, so I'm going to actually leave the big stalks because there is a thing where insects will overwinter in those type of things. And we'll just get this all cleaned up probably as everything is melted and stuff starts to grow. And up front here, we've kind of made these into our permanent trellises. We have one more trellis that's permanent we're going to put up, and then they can stay there all winter long, and we'll just use them every year. I did plant garlic. It is underneath this trellis here. It's still going to be probably at least 2-3 months till we see anything growing in the garden out here. But this is the time of the year where, you know, it's kind of what we call fall spring. We're getting really excited. We're thinking it's spring. Not quite yet, but I think we can dream and we can plan, and we can maybe really push those edges just a little bit. So I'm sorry for the bounciness, because as you walk through snow that melts, where it's been stepped on, it's hard packed. But if you step off the path into some place where it has not been stepped on, you will sink right through. So here we have the little high tunnel that we built last year, or should I say my husband built. And it fared the winter amazingly well. I did not ever come and knock the snow off it at all. It just kind of all fell down. The snow was quite far up the sides at some points, but everything looks like it's melted pretty well. So let's go in here and see. I'm sure it's probably just cooking in here. Well, it's not too hot, but it's definitely warmer. And as you can see, everything is melted in here. And as you can see, I didn't pull anything out from in here either. So this is probably going to be maybe the first area that I get to, because again, I said in my last video, I have some plans and ideas for here. Now at this point, I could potentially still save some seeds. Like this here was a holy basil. So I could come out here and save these seeds if I want. I bet you I'll be getting some stuff growing there this year. We're just going to get everything pulled out in here. But I mean, let's see how I can get into this soil, how workable it is. So, I mean, I can get pretty far in here, and this ground is definitely thawed pretty far down. It's just frozen when I get to there. So it's probably hard to see, but it's probably an inch and a half thawed, which is great. I can get some cool weather crops in here, an early start on some things. Hopefully they'll be harvested by the time that I want to put my melons and my other warm loving crops in here. I guess that was a little sneak peek into my plans for this little greenhouse. Is going to try to get 2 crops out of here this summer. So we'll leave the greenhouse here. There's a couple more things to look at. The plan has always been to kind of expand the garden this way. We did have our 3 sisters corn and stuff in the little bed out there we pulled apart last year. We're going to see if maybe we can get a little bit of cultivation up front and maybe just have our big pumpkin patch there, do the 3 sisters again. That's not a super big priority this year because we have a bunch of other stuff going on. We're actually getting a house and all that stuff built this year. Then I can get into maybe some landscaping around the house, which is really exciting. So we'll see if we can get to that this year. But over here, this was kind of our new little patch. Last year we had some tomatoes. I did put some strawberries in, and that's really going to be the priority for the expansion. I mean, it's already kind of expanded, but I really want to get this developed into a new strawberry patch this year so we can kind of revamp back over there. And then of course, continuing to develop back into there. The house is actually going to go right back behind those trees. So maybe have a bit of a transition area between the garden and the yard. So there's a little walkthrough through the garden at the beginning of March. Of course, things are going to change over the next months, even just weeks. This is such a great time of the year where everything just starts to grow and bloom. I'm always on the lookout because the first thing I see every year is when the willows behind the pussy willows start to bloom. That is my key sign that it's happening. So I'll be sure to let you guys know as soon as that happens. But there's still lots of work to continue to plant the seeds and take care of all the seedlings as they grow before they're ready to be put out here. As always, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.